So now that was the hemp part. Now we're going to sort of go into the cannabis, medical marijuana part, and social sciences too, because it's all interrelated. But medical marijuana, cannabis has a long history. It's been around for thousands of years. It started in China. It was used for all sorts of things, pain management, for nausea, for people with epilepsy, or when they would have convulsions. It was very useful for that. So, and somebody recently uncovered a body. They found a body in the Gobi Desert. It was a 2,700-year-old body that was buried with 2 pounds of cannabis. So you could tell that this was very important to that culture, and this was a very important person, or a very lucky person. So, but what was it used for? You know, was it for medical reasons, or was it for you know, for seeing things, as a shaman would use? But we don't know. But you know, that's a good starting point if you want to do some research into that. We know that hemp seed oil and cannabis root was used in the 1700s for a lot of different things. And in the 1830s, an Irish doctor, William O'Shaughnessy, was practicing in India. And he noticed that they were using cannabis for all sorts of things in India, for pain, for nausea, for convulsions. And so he documented all the different uses that they used cannabis for in India, took that back to England, and it became wildly successful. Cannabis medicines, by 1900, there were over 1,000 different products on the market that had cannabis in them. So it was very popular. Eli Lilly, a lot of big pharmaceutical companies were making cannabis products. Queen Victoria was even prescribed cannabis. So, but at the beginning of the 1900s, the use of cannabis as a medicine started to decline. And we need to understand that. We need to look at the history more and really document that better. You know, why was that? Was it because, it could have been because the dosage, it was very hard to come up with a consistent effect of the drug. They didn't even know what THC was back then. They didn't know what CBD was. It wasn't going to be discovered for 60 more years. So it was very hard to come up with a standardized dose of the medicine. And other drugs like aspirin and opiates were developed at around the same time. So they became more popular. Cannabis use dwindled as a medicine in the early 1900s. And then in the 1930s, the Reefer Madness campaign kicked into full swing. And in 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act was railroaded through Congress, despite testimony against it by the American Medical Association and despite testimony by a couple hemp industries, or a couple companies in the hemp industry. Unfortunately, in the 30s, the hemp industry had basically died out in America, so they didn't realize all the great uses of hemp back then. But there were still a couple hemp companies that did testify against this, but it still went through, got railroaded through Congress. So if you want to do a research project on how legislation can get just totally railroaded through Congress and turned into law, study the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. Or even help us put cannabis back in the pharmacopoeia. In 1942, they removed the words cannabis from the pharmacopoeia, which is a listing of all drugs, which is just crazy. But they took it out. We need to put it back in. We need help doing that. So, help. Medical biology. If you're into there's so many different areas. We've talked about CBDs a little bit. A company up in Marblehead recently just sequenced the entire cannabis genome. So we have all this data of the cannabis genome sitting there for somebody to look at and to research and to figure out, you know, how can we make better hemp stalks? How can we make better hemp seed? Or, you know, learn about all the different cannabinoids. Or we need to understand the endocannabinoid system, which is a literal link between your mind and your body. You have these cannabinoid receptors. And we need to understand how THC and all the different cannabinoids interact with your endocannabinoid system. There's a lot of research to be done in that area. We know they've identified over 50 different cannabinoids. So we've got THC, CBD. Those are great. But what do all the other ones do? And we need you to discover, if you discover your own cannabinoid, you get to name it. So you could call it tetrahydrocannabidiol or something like that. You know? Why not? One researcher calls cannabis a synergistic shotgun because it does so much. It's so safe, it's so effective, and it's amazing that it treats so many different things. It's great for nausea. They're actually finding out that cannabis helps heal fractures faster. It's great for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, which is good as our population ages. It's great for so many different things: depression, glaucoma. It's good for head trauma, for strokes. And it's also good for asthma, which seems counterintuitive, but it's true. And one thing that they're really finding out lately is that cannabis is very good for post-traumatic stress disorder, which a lot of our veterans have. So, unfortunately, our Veterans Administration is really screwing with the veterans, and they're not letting them have this safe and effective medicine. So if you care about our veterans, and I know you do, you'll work with them and our VA to help ensure that we get our vets their medicine. It's very important, and it can do a lot of help.